Hey there, I'm Squishei, and welcome to the Galakras Raid Guide. Galakras is the 5th boss in the instance, and comes with 2 phases. In the first phase, players deal with multiple adds, and in the second, players deal with Galakras himself. We recommend bringing 2 tanks, 3 healers, and a balanced DPS composition that includes stuns. Talk to one of your faction leaders to begin the encounter. Waves of adds will stream from between the 2 towers at regular intervals. Bone Crushers will attempt to kill one of the 3 faction leaders using an ability called Fracture, dealing 10% health every second to one of them. They will also do raid-wide AoE damage approximately every 10 seconds. The next add is the Flag Bearer, who periodically drops a 1 health banner on the ground that is immune to AoE. The banner will buff nearby mobs with a damage and attack speed buff. Tidal Shamans summon a Healing Tide totem with 50,000 health at their feet, healing nearby mobs. They will also cast a Chain Heal, restoring health. Additionally, there will be 2 Demolishers that spawn throughout the fight. They will fire at the nearby towers, dealing damage to any players inside while the Demolisher remains active. There are also 4 mini-bosses that spawn throughout the fight. Korgra the Snake will spawn first. She stacks a small dot on the tank, and below 50% health, she will constantly use Poison Bolt Volley, hitting each player. The next boss players will encounter on the ground is High Enforcer Threnok. He will constantly pull players in, and then AoE around him when casting Crusher's Call. The last 2 mini-bosses are up on the towers, both having similar abilities. They both want to knock players off the tower using Kotal attacks. Before the fight begins, the raid should assign a tower team consisting of a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS, preferring melee. The rest of the raid will handle adds on the ground. Throughout the entire fight, the priority for adds is Banner, Healing Tide Totem, then Shaman, Bone Crusher, and Flag Bearer. Note that if any of the 3 faction leaders die, the encounter ends. Thus, make sure you have a stun, knockback, or grip for each fracture cast, occurring approximately every 30 seconds while a Bone Crusher is active. Be wary of the fracture cast on the melee NPC, as you will not see the mob charge. Lastly, one of the NPCs will summon a Flame Strike that will deal a large amount of damage to every mob inside it. Try to get as many mobs inside, though it will generally be not needed if the group's DPS is high enough. Wave 1 of adds consists of 2 Bone Crushers and a Flag Bearer. Wave 2 consists of a Shaman, a Flag Bearer, and a bunch of AoE fodder. Wave 3 is the first mini-boss wave. Focus fire the boss and watch the small dark void zones that spawn in melee. Kill the Demolisher that spawns, and the tower team should then head to the left tower. For each tower, there are 3 adds at the bottom which can be AoE down. Making the way to the top, players should focus fire the mini-boss and dodge the iconal attacks they throw at the raid. Note that the animation for the attacks is sometimes very slow, and players should instead use the direction that the boss is facing rather than the ground animation. Once the boss is dead, kill the remaining 3 archers, and the tank should use the anti-air cannon and shoot down all the proto-drakes. Before the tank hops down to rejoin the group, he should click on the rope to drop the rope for future use. Back on the ground, Wave 4 contains 2 proto-drakes will spawn which have a frontal breath. Wave 5 consists of the second mini-boss, High Enforcer Threnok. He will constantly pull players into melee range and then AoE around him. Simply run out of melee range when he is casting Crusher's Call to avoid the ability. He also spawns with a Shaman, a Flag Bearer, and a Bone Crusher. Players should focus the Shaman first, killing banners and totems of course, and then focus the mini-boss. Once the boss is dead, kill the Demolisher whenever it spawns. At this point, the tower group should enter the right tower and clear it just the same as the left. The boss at the top has a very rapid and hard-hitting auto attack. Be sure to pop cooldowns if needed. Once the tower is clear, leave a DPS to man the cannon to prepare to shoot down Galakras. Wave 6 contains a Title Shaman, a Flag Bearer, and more AoE fodder. Wave 7 consists of another Shaman, a Flag Bearer, and a Bone Crusher. At this point, both towers should be clear, and all players, but the one DPS in the right tower's cannon, should start clearing up the remaining waves of adds. Once the Shaman is dead, send another DPS to the left tower to man the other cannon. Note that he can click the bottom of the rope that the tank clicked on earlier to quickly ascend the tower. Wait until wave 8 spawns, which only consists of 2 Protodrakes, and clean up all remaining adds, and then simultaneously shoot Galakras with both anti-air cannons to bring him down and enter phase 2. When Galakras drops to the ground, make sure to position him in the center of the alley. Players should stack behind the boss except for the current tank. Galakras will constantly deal AoE fire damage to the entire raid. The other ability in this phase is Flames of Galakron, and this is by far the most important ability in the entire fight. The boss will target a player with a red hunter's mark, turning the outside of their screen in a red hue. A red line will connect the player to Galakras. After 5 seconds, when the debuff expires, the boss summons an orb of fire that will follow the path of the line when the debuff expired, and the orb will explode upon reaching the final destination. The explosion deals a large amount of fire damage, but for every player that the orb passes through, it will reduce the damage of the final explosion. Any player will receive a stacking 30k dot for helping to reduce the explosion. Since the raid is mostly stacked, players who are targeted by the hunter's mark should stand about 5 to 10 yards behind the group. Players who are still stacked should attempt to stand in the line that the orb will travel through. Standing in multiple successive orbs will stack the dot. Refrain from standing in the orb's path at 3 or more stacks of it. Just simply stand to the side to avoid reapplications, and then rejoin the group when the stacks drop off. Tanks standing in front of the boss will be able to help soak the orb, but will need to swap every 3 to 5 stacks. Note that the orb seems to have a short ICD on applying the dot, and subsequently reducing the orb's damage, so players may receive the dot inconsistently, even standing in the line 100% of the time. Also note that melee can be the target of the orb. Throughout the phase, Galakras increases all fire damage periodically until he is defeated, making the phase harder the longer it goes on. We recommend using Bloodlust or Heroism and raid cooldowns at sub 50% of Galakras' health. Here's a recap of the fight. Assign a tower team of 4 players, 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. Tower teams should go to the left tower after the first demolisher dies, and the right tower after the second. In the towers, kill all the adds and the mini-boss to unlock the anti-air cannons. Watch the conal attacks from the mini-boss up top, and join the group when the tower is complete. While on the ground, kill adds in the priority Banner, Totem, Shaman, Bone Crusher, Flag Bearer, and then everything else. Interrupt Shaman's chain heals, and make sure to stun, grip, or knock back the Bone Crusher when he is channeling Fracture on an NPC. After each mini-boss is a demolisher, make sure to kill it as soon as possible so the tower team can begin. For the snake boss, make sure to use raid cooldowns to reduce the poison bolt volley damage sub 50%. For the high enforcer, make sure to run out of melee range after he begins the cast of Crusher's Call. When wave 8 of the double Protodrakes is about to die, Use both anti-air cannons to shoot Galakras out of the sky. Stack behind the boss and use raid cooldowns and Bloodlust or Heroism sub 50%. If you are targeted by Flames of Galakron, make sure to run behind the group. If you are not targeted, make sure to stand in the line that the orb creates or avoid it at above 3 stacks of the debuff. Stay tuned for more Siege of Orgrimmar raid guides. As always, you can follow me on Twitter and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.